Welcome to the BrightEyes Podcast. Daniel Cow here. Before we get into the podcast for today, I would like to make a very, very special announcement that the BrightEyes application is now open. So you can check that out at our website, which is brighteyes-students.org, and you can go ahead and apply. We are partnering with Portfolium, so you can go ahead and head over to portfolium.com, create an account, upload your resume, and send in your application through the link that we have provided on our website. All of that will be available in our show notes. So go ahead, and the application, I believe, closes, or the first round closes January 1st, 2015. So you want to get those applications in as soon as possible. So yeah, we're excited to bring you guys on board for next year and to see what next year's class is going to be like, and the next year's trip is just going to be even better, greater and better than last year's. So on to our show for today. Today's show is a friend that of mine that I met on the BrightEyes trip last year. His name is Daniel Lee. People call him Daniel Ewok Lee for short, or for his nickname, because there's a lot of Daniel Lees in this world. So Daniel Lee and I will be talking about his company, his most recent endeavor, Hush, and how Hush is currently on Kickstarter, and definitely check them out too. They are on Kickstarter. They are a smart earplug that delivers notifications to you while blocking out sound. So go ahead and check them out on Kickstarter. They're doing amazingly. They raised over $400,000 on their Kickstarter, and be sure to check them out. Be sure to show them some love. So yeah, as I mentioned before, all the show notes will be available on the blog if you're listening by iTunes or Stitcher. Be sure to check them out at brighteyesstudents.org. So without further ado, here's Daniel Lee.
We at BrightEyes recognize that to be successful, we all require someone willing to invest in our potential and vision.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the BrightEyes Podcast. Today with me is Daniel Lee. Daniel, how are you?
Good. Am I supposed to look at the camera? Or am I supposed to look at you?
Well, you can actually, so you can look
Address
at the camera.
both.
Address both, yeah.
Okay.
That's a question I should have told you earlier, but that's okay. So Daniel and I, well, I'm Daniel too, so we're kind of kindred spirits here.
Yes.
But I met Daniel through, actually, why don't you explain this? How did we
I'm going to
meet
talk
each
all
other?
day, Daniel.
all right.
I'm just kidding.
So,
I'll do it.
Okay.
So Daniel and I met through this program put on by Tiffany Stone called BrightEyes. It's like I think this is going on a BrightEyes podcast, you guys probably know. But we went on a trip last spring, so a few months ago actually, to San Fran, where we went up and visited a bunch of startups, venture capitalists, and a bunch of different people. And that's kind of the context through which I've met Daniel. So yeah.
Yeah. So, and Daniel is this is so funny. Actually, before we get a little deeper into it, do a lot of people call you Ewok? I've heard that like thrown around a lot. Daniel Ewok Lee, is
Yes.
that like your name because there's another?
There's many Daniels and many Daniel Lees in the world,
Yeah.
so it's kind of it was a nickname that was given to me when I was a lot younger that I hated initially because I thought it was super degrading, and at some point I really liked it because no one else was down to be called Ewok, so I was like, all right.
Where did it come from? Just kind of curious.
That's from my church. So my pastor in 7th grade was like, all right, there's like 4 Daniel Lees, there's like 6 Daniels. I'm just gonna give nicknames. He was like, you're Ewok, you're Koala, you're something. And the other guy is still nicknamed Koala to this day, so I think Ewok's a little better than Koala. Yeah.
I'd rather have Ewok than Koala, but I got cow, so.
Okay.
Cool. So now you're here. I mean, I know you started this company called Hush Technology.
Yep.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Okay. Just kind of as an overarching pitch of
Yeah,
of the
for
product.
people who don't know.
So Hush Technology. So I just recently graduated from UCSC this past June, And during my senior year, I was kind of like incubating an idea that came up in college because I always suffered with trying to sleep through like loud environments, so whether it be apartment mates yelling in the living room or like a roommate snoring. So what we've created is the world's first smart earplug, and what this does is it puts a little speaker on the inside of an earplug so that you can combine noise masking with the earplug noise blocking component, so you can really block out the world around you. But because there are still things you need to hear, like your alarm clock or an emergency phone call, we connect wirelessly with your smartphone so that you can still hear those things. So you can, you can still hear those notifications. And what's also really cool about that is when it sounds, only you can hear it. So when you wake up, you don't have to wake up anyone else around you. I mean, so that's the essence of Hush. And then we luckily were accepted into EvoNexus, which is where we're at currently. And it's a local San Diego startup accelerator / incubator. So it's a great program here. That's kind of been the genesis of Hush, and yeah.
It's a great pitch. I'm sure you've rehearsed it a number of times.
Yeah.
So what was like the, I know you mentioned like you struggled through falling asleep, when other things were going on. Was there like a particular instant that was like, I'm fed up with this, I've had enough, I'm going to start this? What were some of those? I'm just kind of curious to hear the story.
It's just the typical thing. You're in a college environment, you have people banging on the walls next to you. It's like, what are you doing? Come on, man. It's like 3 in the morning. And then I guess to extrapolate a little bit more on the original evolution of the idea, what happened was I always had earplugs. I wear earplugs a lot, but with earplugs, whenever I had to wake up to my schedule, there was always like this anxiety that I had that was like, oh shoot, am I gonna hear my alarm clock? Like I can kind of hear it through the earplug, but I don't know if I'll wake up to it. So there's always this anxiety with that. So that's kind of that's how the idea initially started, because I was like, hey, if I want to still hear my alarm clock, why not just put a tiny speaker on the inside of the earplug, so then I can still hear those things. And that was kind of like the main problem. That it was like very like engineering focused. It was like very like logical, like can't block out sound. If you block out sound, you can't hear stuff. How do I still hear stuff? Oh, put a speaker on the inside of things so you can still hear stuff. So that's kind of was like the original idea, and then it started to evolve into this like noise masking, like soothing sound playing, like being able to play soothing sounds all night.
Yeah.
So it sort of evolved over time, but that was like the original.
I see. Okay, so you had this idea. Yeah. Right. And then you're like, okay, this is a great idea. I want to try it. What were your first steps after that? How did you get? Well, what was the first thing you did after that to kind of get it going?
So, I took advantage of the idea I started acting on it because of there's this class at UCSD called MAE 154.
I've heard of it.
So it's like it's not really engineering. It's just like an entrepreneurship course. And then so I originally pitched the idea for that class, and then at the end of the class there's like a competition where 3 teams out of the like 10 or so receive $2,000 to build prototypes of their products. So that's initially where I got some like minimal traction to be like, okay, we won this, like let's actually try to build the thing. And then that's where it started. So that's like and shockingly I think we were the only team out of the other 3 that actually used any of the funds that we're given. So I don't know, but then that's like there's resources that I took advantage of and that UCSD offers, so really get on that.
So what major were you, just so everyone knows?
So I'm a mechanical engineer. I graduated as a mechanical engineering major. Yeah.
How did, if even, do you still use that, or did that kind of, was that something that helped you in starting this Hush technology? How did that play in?
Yeah, definitely. I think an engineering degree is very, very useful because an idea is just an idea, but in my opinion, execution is everything. And at the start with an idea, how are you going to convince it's really hard to convince other people to like jump on board and start like building something for you. So that's where it's like, at least in the very beginning, you gotta just build it yourself, or like, to some extent. So that's where it was very useful that I could just actually try building the thing. I use SolidWorks, use different tools that I kind of learned through UCSD and different projects, and
very nice.
So
And then when you came to like bringing other people on board, how did that process go? What was that process like?
So, I haven't thought about this in a while. Okay, well, I think the process of convincing people to jump on board on your idea is it's like, so I feel like I'm always pitching all the time, and you need to pitch everyone. You need to pitch you need to pitch investors, you need to pitch your co-founders and get them like excited about your idea.
Yeah.
So I think what was useful in my case was, I think one of the ideas of pitching is that you need to kind of create the sense of like urgency or momentum, or like you need to ride the wave of whatever like momentum you have. So I think one of the things that was useful was like we won another pitch competition later, and then I was like, that was kind of some leverage to get my co-founders to be like, or my potential co-founders to be like, whoa, this is an idea that's kind of getting traction in the community. So I think that was very useful. Is like try to hit milestones and really milk those milestones whenever you're pitching whoever it is, whether it's your investors or your co-founders or whoever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just riding the wave, and that's how you pitch.
I remember some investor talking about, I don't know if it was during the BrightEyes trip or not, but there was some investor talking about like they generally like to invest in companies that have co-founders and aren't just a single like solopreneur, as it's called. And generally the idea behind that is that the at least the CEO, the person with the idea, was able to convince someone else that they're not crazy.
Yeah.
So I think that's and so I kind of want to talk about your team actually, because I just find it extremely fascinating that you have three founding founders.
Yes.
And all of you are named Daniel.
Yep.
And all of you are Korean.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So three Daniels and three and so like I'm just kind of wondering like what are the roles, like how did you kind of divide, how did you find them? Were they just kind of your friends that you've known for a while, or like, and then what kind of, and as kind of a corollary, what kind of skills do you guys each play?
Okay, so, oh sorry, I just shook the camera.
That's okay.
So yeah, we're all Daniel. I think when I was going out, one of the key components I needed on the team was a software guy, preferably someone that has some more computer engineering experience, where you actually have done some firmware programming in addition to software and what have you. And so that's kind of one of the key roles that I needed filled in the co-founder role. And then at the same time, the other role, Daniel Sin, the other guy, he was actually a structural engineer, which is not even very relevant to what we're doing. But I think what was key there is I had been living with him for the past 2 years as a roommate.
Okay.
And I knew that we could work together well, and we understood each other, and I knew he was a smart guy. And I know that with so many things in a startup, there's so many random tasks and responsibilities that no one has any expertise in, but you just have to figure it out and do it.
Yeah.
So that's where I saw Danielson as a valuable member, and that he's smart enough, and we work well together. So that's why I brought him on board.
I think what's funny, I mean, I think I was reading this. No, have you heard of a guy named Dave McClure? He's a guy at 500 Startups. Yeah. I was listening to a talk by him, and he was saying that every founding team needs 3 personalities. There's the hacker, the hipster, and the hustler.
I haven't heard this actually.
I just
Please explain a little more. I'm curious.
So the idea behind it is there's the hacker, which is the technical guy.
Okay.
Right, the technical guy that's just really good at the technical details, programming, hardware, whatever the
My mom's calling.
I'll pick it up later. Whatever the technical has to do with, right? And then there's the hipster, which is the designer, right? The person that makes the website look nice, the video, all the marketing, that's a hipster, and the hustler is the one that's like out there like trying to get like the investments and like networking and all that stuff. So I mean, I feel like it's a good Triforce, and it like it covers a lot of the bases. You know, like what else do you really need in an early stage startup?
I should go pitch Dave McClure.
I know. Shockingly, it
that's
like
exactly what our roles like come down to. We have one guy who's heavy on the technical side in software. We have one guy who is Daniel Sin is now he's jumped really into the design role, and he's doing a great job there. And then I'm supposed to be that hustler. So yeah, wow. I should go pitch that guy.
You should have like little like subtitles on your business cards.
Yeah, hustler, hacker, designer, or whatever, hipster.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I mean that's it's very interesting. So then that being said, I mean I think it's cool to see. It's really cool on my end to watch you guys progress. I mean ever since I met you back in what was it, April, Marchish, and like you know like hearing about your idea, and during that time you were in the Moxie Center. This was before you were in EvoNexus, right?
Yeah.
And then just watching you guys progress and like watching the EvoNexus like Twitter blow up for like technology, like wow, it's really exciting. So yeah, like definitely really love watching what you guys are doing. Where are you guys at now? And like what are kind of the challenges you're facing on a day-to-day at this point?
Okay. So where Hush is at now is we actually, sad to say, we told our mailing list subscribers 2 weeks ago actually, but we pushed our Kickstarter back from October into November. And the reason behind that is we had a issue with comfort, because our product is, if you're gonna sleep with it for 8 hours, it's gotta be like comfort is like it has to be comfortable. Yeah. It has to be something that people can sleep with. Yeah. We had a design actually that we had completely like engineered out, and we had like everything like done. We had all the electronics done and housing and everything. And then when we were just testing out like prototypes to kind of feel how it feels like to sleep on, like we had bad results. Like side sleepers were not like they just took it out in the middle of the night because they didn't want to deal with it. So that's why we had to completely rethink our design and start from the basics to kind of figure out how we can make it comfortable. So that's kind of the reason behind the pushing it back to November. But we are on track for our date in November, and I don't want to say the exact date. You have to sign up for the mailing list on our website.
There you go.
Hush.technology. Get on the early adopter mailing list, and you'll know exactly the time that we launch a Kickstarter. So,
well, I mean, I think by the time this episode comes out, it'll probably be.
Oh, it's probably after.
So we'll
look at the Kickstarter.
Link, we'll leave a link in the show notes, and we'll have you support it. So
great.
How many days are you planning to run the Kickstarter? Have you thought about that yet?
Yeah. So I would give away when we're launching if I told you how many days it was, but I'll just say that we're planning on ending possibly on Christmas Day or Christmas.
Okay.
Christmas,
yeah. This episode will be out by then, so if you want to get any gifts for your loved ones or
for next Christmas, because it's not coming back this Christmas,
or for as a gift for maybe your partner that snores too loud, or for you
to deal with your
snoring partner. Check it out in the show notes. Cool. So I wanna get your thoughts too. This is something interesting. I wanna get your thoughts on going from kind of campus, doing kind of bootstrapping and like trying, going on your own to something like EvoNexus, right? Yeah. Like the accelerator program. How did you decide to do that? What were like the considerations, or was it just kind of like oh no, we have to get into here?
Sorry.
So I just want to hear your thought process pretty much of like getting into EvoNexus, like choosing EvoNexus as the place to house your company for however long you guys will be here.
Yeah. Actually, we didn't even really apply to too many accelerators. Actually, EvoNexus was the only accelerator that we applied to legitimately. We kind of like halved another another application. But I think the thought process behind Evo was that we applied into Evo and said that we're going to get into Evo, and if we don't get into Evo, then we'll just apply to another accelerator that accepts startups a couple months down the line, so maybe in like July or something.
Got it.
Because there was a couple that I was kind of keeping my eye on. For hardware startups, there's a lot of them, like Accelerator, Highway 1, a couple of different ones. And those kind of have a little bit of a later decision date. So I was waiting on the EvoNexus decision before applying into those other ones, and luckily I didn't have to apply to those other ones.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea behind not wanting to apply to any of those other hardware specific incubators was fueled by I think, or it was primarily fueled by us having an investor in San Diego, and staying in San Diego is what just made the most sense.
Yeah.
As a result of that.
That
So.
makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you generally, well, I mean, like, even, companies that are starting up and, like, thinking about whether they want to even go to an accelerator or not.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the things that you found personally for your company helpful about being an accelerator?
Yeah.
That other companies maybe who are considering, should think about.
So, accelerators are extremely useful because of the mentorship that they offer. I think that has been the single most critical element of EvoNexus. So there's a lot of crap that can come up between three guys living in the same apartment and then coming here, and decisions and just conflicts. And I think that's going to happen in any startup. You're in constant close proximity with two other people. So I think a lot of times just to kind of talk it out with a mentor. So at EvoNexus, we were assigned one mentor that meets with us weekly for a couple hours, and that he has been like really, really helpful in kind of like just like focusing us again. Because sometimes we'll like go off and we'll try to do something in some way, and then when we report back to him, he would kind of comment and say like, is that the best use of your time? Or like and just like we'll have like disagreements. We'll not see between me and my co-founders, we'll have like disagreements and not see eye to eye on everything, but then we'll just be like, okay, we'll see what Prashant has to say. We have like 3 different ideas, we'll see what he has to say, and then we'll like, that's more heavily weighted. Just having someone who is like your advisor, who you are saying, we're going to look up and see your opinion as more valuable than ours, or like not more valuable than ours, but like as of extra value.
Like outsiders.
Yeah, like an outsider's perspective that we think is valuable. It's just useful to have that, and then the 3 of us can like kind of agree that, oh wow, that's valuable, let's kind of take it in this direction. If we can't find the compromise or whatever.
Has there been like one specific moment where like that your mentor truly like it was like, okay, I'm so glad that you said that or something?
I think not so much in like resolving disputes, because more like he has been really helpful. Like there was one thing, or there's a couple things. I'm trying to think of a particularly powerful one. So I never want to document anything. I hate documenting stuff. I feel like it's a waste of time. But my advisor, he was saying like, you want to have a product requirements document, and I was like, this is like, initially I was like, this is a waste of time. I know in my head what the product is going to be. I know I've been talking with people. I already know it's been evolving in my head, but I haven't put on in documentation. And after I put it down in documentation, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a huge relief to my head. At the same time, like I can update this document. I can like, it was like super valuable and like interfacing with other engineers I was working with, and saying like, this is, instead of having to explain everything about the product to each person, I just send them the product requirements document, and that was very, very useful. I haven't updated it recently, but it was useful back then. I should probably do it again. Yeah,
that's great. I mean, I'm kind of similar. I tend to just want to build things or just want to go and I don't really put too much thought into like documenting. Although I do try to put my thoughts and Cool. I think we're gonna shift gears a little bit here. I think it's great to hear about what your company is doing, how Hush is doing, and it's really exciting to watch. So definitely check them out on the Kickstarter. But I think what's even more fascinating to me is just seeing people's personal journeys. How did they get to where they are today? What are the kind of key characteristics of people who are going after success and who are successful? So I mean, I think one question that is interesting to me is like, when did you even get into this whole thinking that, hey, I can be an entrepreneur? Like, was there a moment for that, or was that something you kind of always grew up with, or kind of how was your journey to kind of
Later, mother. So I actually was not I didn't even think about entrepreneurship until this past year. So I grew up in an Asian family, and with an Asian mother, who was a nurse. I was like destined to be a doctor. That's kind of what I was thinking I was gonna do into high school. Towards the end of high school, I did an internship. I was forced to do an internship, and I did it at an engineering firm just because I was lazy and I hadn't signed up for one that was relevant to me earlier. And then I loved it. I loved the engineering internship, and then that's where I was like, I really like engineering. I'm gonna try going into this. So that's where I was at coming to college. So went from a typical Asian medical person to an engineer, and then from engineering, I just thought I was gonna work. I went through a couple different phases. I was like, I want to be a professor because that's like the next thing on the Asians. Like, it's okay. You're allowed to be. If you're not gonna be a doctor, you can be a professor. Okay, I'll be a professor, engineering professor. So I went that route, and I was planning to do a PhD. And then that's when I did some research in a couple grad labs. Spent the summer over in Texas doing research, and it was fun, but it wasn't really as I wanted to get more real world quicker. It was so that's where I switched into wanting to just get an engineering normal job. I was planning on I was gonna work at SpaceX, which was really cool. I think they're doing really cool stuff.
Oh yeah.
But then so that was my plan into junior, senior year. I want to work at SpaceX, or there's a couple other companies. I don't remember anymore. But so that was
don't document things.
I don't document things. That's when in senior year I took that entrepreneurship course just for fun. I was like, what's the easy technical elective? And then it turned out, and it just slowly progressed. I was still planning I want to work at SpaceX, so I want to work at a bigger company first. But then I just kept on pushing on that front, pitching more competitions and just seeing if this would pan out to anything cool, and slowly evolved more and more until it became what it is now. So I eventually just was like, okay, I can just push off that job a little bit later, then I'll just do this for a little bit because we have some money, so we can try to mess around with this for a bit.
I see.
And that's where now we're here.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing this full time, and hopefully I can do this full time for a while.
Yeah. That sounds like. So it sounds like you just totally just stumbled into it.
Yeah, very slowly. It was a slow
very
progression.
unintentionally, but it just kind of happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't I didn't know when I was young. I wasn't selling a bunch of stuff on the side of the road as a 6th grader. No, it's just,
So how did people around you, your parents, your friends, it's one thing for me being Asian, I recognize the whole I understand, we're kindred spirit. I understand the whole thing about you want to get a stable job, you want to work at Google or Intel, whatever, right? But for me, it's just I always have an itch to be building something new, to be trying something out, and just kind of it's sometimes a struggle to deal with the people around me. How have you found dealing with your friends and family when it comes to being an entrepreneur? How do other people see you? What are the challenges? Is it easy? Do people mostly accept you, or are there things that they tell you to go get a real job or something?
No, so I think I mean, I'm gonna say the same stuff that you'll probably hear like everyone saying. It's like you with parents, or like with my parents in particular. My parents. So my parents said like by September you'll know if your company's a success or not, and you'll go find a real job. If like we'll let you do that, and I just kept on pushing it back. It's all right, Mom. It's fine. We're doing well. We're okay. Though we hadn't launched on Kickstarter, because Kickstarter was gonna be like the deciding factor for my mom, because she would be like, okay, people are putting money into it, like that's fine. But I think it's just there has been pressure, because it's just like, I mean, mothers are concerned about their kids, so so there has been just like a be stable, like be safe, but so that there's always that. I think with like how friends perceive it, I think with a startup, I mean it's fun. I've received pretty good support from friends. I think. No, I haven't really heard from them. Go get a real job. They're like, "Oh, you're doing really cool stuff." So I'm down.
Do you find your friends to be jealous?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
That's fine.
I have had some interesting, like, I think, like there has been a time that it kind of sucked that, like, like one of my friends I don't want to say the details, but pretty much like misjudged me because they thought like I was thinking I was too important for them or something. Like I didn't, like I was late to something, and then he was thinking like, oh dude, you're like, you think you can just leave me hanging like this? And I was like, no, I was just late. I got caught up with something. So I don't know if that's because of me being in a startup or like things are going well that he thinks like, oh, he's like, but I feel like there's already different perception and judgment of what I'm doing. So. Yeah. And relationships are a little bit different, but
that's interesting. So I guess that being said, I think here's a question for you.
All right.
What would you recommend to someone in college, say freshman, sophomore,
okay,
that kind of has an entrepreneurial drive?
Okay.
But doesn't really know where to start or what to do. What kind of pointers or things would you tell them?
Just jump in, get involved. There's a lot of activities that UCSD. This is for UCSD students. There's a lot of things going on campus that you can try it out and just jump into it. There's I'll just list a couple. Just go get involved at the Moxie Center. Go get involved at like the Brady School. The MBA program at UCSD hosts a bunch of competitions. There's an e-challenge competition. They have both the elevator pitch and the business plan competition. I think there's actually a number of. I think there's Pathways Ventures. There's a lot of stuff going on, and like you'll constantly hear about like pitch contests, and just go to them and pitch. And that's really the biggest thing. You'll get like smashed a couple times. I was terrible the first time I pitched, but that's just the way to start. And then you'll get contacts from those events. You'll get exposure. You'll maybe find co-founders because people will approach you and say like your idea is cool. Like just put yourself out there, put your idea out there, and let it get formed by a lot of other opinions other than your own, because you can have tunnel vision, and that can really
That's great. You just gave a whole cornucopia of things. So I will put those in the show notes. If you go below this video, you'll find all those links to all those things, all those goodies that Daniel Walkley just mentioned. Cool. And I think as a kind of corollary to that, what are some things that you would tell your 5-year-ago self? So like what would that be? Like freshman. Let's just say freshman in college. What would you tell to yourself as a freshman in college?
As a freshman in college, I think it's kind of the same little spiel I gave earlier, was just get involved in stuff. I think it would have been cool if I had started getting involved in like entrepreneur stuff earlier. I mean, I had no idea that I wanted to do it. So. But like even when I was going down the engineering path, like getting involved in like I don't know, SAE or whatever engineering related stuff is going on campus.
Mm-hmm.
Like that stuff I probably should have done as a freshman. And so that, I mean, if I were to give any advice, it's just get involved in whatever it is and whatever you're interested in.
Yeah.
There's always people that trying to organize something for whatever it is, and just go to it. That's probably the biggest thing.
Great answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So we're gonna go into a little rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So with these questions, feel free to take as long or as short as you want, but we're just kind of gonna string them together. They might not have anything to do with each other.
Okay.
So the first one is a question that Peter Thiel likes to talk a lot about in his books, and the question is, what is one thing you find to be true that most people would disagree with you on?
Okay. So one thing that I find true that most people would disagree with me on, I think this was more true when I was in college. I think this is as you get older and more into the workforce, I guess you find this. I think a lot of people, as they get older, they find this to be more and more true.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was younger, and the people that I spoke with, like the conversations that I had with a lot of intellectual people growing up was that things can become, that you can really objectively look at anything and really logically deduce everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and that's a lot more commonly, or when in the group that I grew up in, that was the people that I spoke with thought oh yeah, logic and objectivity, you can objectify everything.
Things are very black and white.
Yes, but I'm finding more and more that everything is super relational, super subjective.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much emotion, and that's just the nature of even for the most emotionless people, everyone is I feel 80-90% of their decisions or their actions are just spurred by some emotional whatever, and that's younger naive me was oh dude, no, that people are dumb, they're just overly emotional, but everyone's emotional, and there's really no way of so there's so many times where people think that they're just being logical or being objective in what they're thinking about, but there's so much emotional underpinnings that influence their decisions, and
That's true.
It's what I would say that most people would agree is just the extent to which that is true.
Mm.
A lot of people would think oh yeah, that's true, but not that much. But I'm really oh my gosh, everything is so emotionally subjective. So
that's a good answer. It reminds me of a book I read recently, actually, called Mindless Eating.
Okay.
The psychology of why we eat, how much we do.
Okay, that sounds
And-
it fits right in with what I'm
and the whole principle behind the book is that people think they're rational, and that they eat rationally, but they do studies and they show that nothing is
nothing is rational.
yeah. So speaking of books, this is something. Here's my next question for you.
All right.
Because I am personally a very big bookworm. I love going through books. I try to do 1 to 2 a week.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of reading, but
Wow.
it's very good for just kind of learning different things. But what are some of your most influential books for you, if you can name any off the top of your head?
Oh man, I don't read books, man. I think.
Was there any book at all in all of your life that?
I'm a Christian, so by default I'm gonna have to say the Bible. No, but I think the Bible, and then there's another Christian book that really influenced my thinking, was The Reason for God by Tim Keller.
Okay.
So there's 2 faith-related books.
Uh-huh.
Non-faith related, I read very few books. I don't even remember the last book that I read.
That is fine. There's a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll recommend you some.
All right. I read ebooks. Yeah.
Well,
I don't.
You don't
I just
remember
read
any?
snippets from ebooks. Just things I need to learn.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. What do your morning, I guess, just daily rituals look like? Are you a morning person? Are you a night person? How do you generally structure your days?
Yeah. Normally I'm still kind of in the college mindset where I'm just like working. I work into the night until it's like 8 hours before my first meeting or whatever it is. So that's usually what it is. Yeah.
What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
First thing I do when I wake up in the morning, other than like wash up, is I do nothing. I just grab a bowl of cereal and I run out to whatever meeting it is. Yeah, I'm starting to try to be more holistic in life, where I'm trying to get back into doing athletics because I hadn't done anything for like 2 months. So like I just recently got a surfboard off Craigslist and I went this morning with a couple friends.
Nice.
So hopefully that's more regular. But
What about just like throughout the day? What are some daily rituals or things that you do that you found to be like super helpful in your just day to day?
I mean, it's just having a plan for what you're doing. So I what's really helpful for me is to keep a little note thing on my phone, and there's always just inspirations of things that I should be trying to do throughout the day. So like I'll think like, oh, I should probably intro this guy to this guy. I don't know. There'll be like random thoughts that I should do this, and sometimes I won't have time to get around to that like at the moment. So I just write it down, and then I have like a to-do list that constantly like updates itself. So I think that's really helpful. Is like the moment you have an idea or the moment you have a thought that you want, that seems like good, just write it down really quickly before you forget it. Because I think that's especially for like the amount of random stuff that I'm juggling. It's really critical because an idea will only come up for a while and then it gets like jumbled in like the random email notifications that come up that you have to address. It's just as the moment you have an idea, write it down. Yeah. That's really helpful.
Cool. I have one more question for you. This is the last and final question.
Alrighty.
Hopefully this one won't be a stumper.
Okay.
Where can people find out more about you?
Where can people find more about me?
Yeah.
In like terms
just like
of
online. Like where can people find out more?
I mean, you could go to hush.technology. That's our company.
It's literally hush.technology.
Yeah, hush.technology.
Nice.
No
You're using the third level domain.
Yeah, not using. Yeah, it's not the best. Some browsers like kind of get confused by it. But it was cheap, and it's cool. It's relevant. It's like straight up our company name, Hush Technology. So
there you go.
So you can go there, learn more about Hush. Yeah,
there you go.
Probably, hopefully in a month's time when this is released, just type in Hush Kickstarter on Google and hopefully it'll be one of the first entries.
There you go. Support. Show my man ewok some support.
All right.
Cool. So that being said, thank you for joining us for another episode.
Yep.
You can learn more about BrightEyes and Hush, and just be sure to check out the show notes. There's a lot that we talked about during this podcast. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Yep.
We at BrightEyes